All right. So we have two sets of minutes that are out, the August 19th and the August 22nd. I sent the August 22nd with my comment that one line item should say a good value. I was saying that the school board has to address the special election from two fronts. Is it a good value, and address the concerns of the community that says, should we even have the vote? So it read a food value instead of a good value. So
No, I didn't.
she must have been hungry when she dictated, and that's fine.
So why don't we break up the
Yeah.
the voting on two then, because one's as
Right.
amended.
So were there any comments or any markups for August 19th that we should be aware of? All right, so I'll
I'll make a
entertain.
motion to approve August 19th minutes.
Andrew makes a motion. Anybody second? Bob seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed and those who abstain. All right, 1, 2, 3 abstentions. So excellent. And then we have a second set of meetings. I just commented on my feedback. I'm not sure if anybody else had any other comments that they had on that. Those
Madam
meetings.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes from August 22nd.
All right, Andrew makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Jessica seconds. All right, all those in favor of approving the amended minutes for August 22nd, please say aye. Those opposed? And, all right, yeah, those who abstain. Wasn't that fast? I can talk fast if you like. All right, and then correspondence. I sent some stuff out today regarding budget review schedule, what's coming up. The town administrator sent a link to the budget that we will start reviewing, and that is actually hard copies have been handed out tonight.
Thank you.
I think that's it, unless anybody can think of any other correspondence. I forgot to write it down. I think we're in good shape because we did all the other stuff. All right. Moving on to reports. Bob.
The town is working on the budgeting process. As you can see all this here. We've met with just about every department, and they've been pretty good about keeping the numbers tight. We have like 1 or 2 more to go, and I think we're going to start presenting to you next week.
Yep.
So I know Mr. Cutter had some questions on some things. Did you get the answers you were looking for?
I sure did, yes, and thank you again to the town administrator for sending this across.
All right, so that would be
Great.
one correspondence that was sent out.
Yeah. Okay,
Andrew's
great.
questions and responses.
Okay. Is there anything else you need, or anybody has any questions that I can go to Troy with or anything?
Not yet. I'm sure we will soon.
Okay. Stay tuned.
It's the start of the season, right? We'll have lots of questions, but we appreciate the timely response.
Okay.
And then, so it's general financial. We did so we did the review of the facility tours. Lots of eye-opening experiences and some really good information. So I believe one of the more recent, we talked about the DPW one that we did earlier this summer. So these are the more current ones. So starting with Aaron Cutler Memorial Library. I was unable to attend it, so I'd love to hear your input and feedback.
Yeah, so I put out, some notes that I've
Yes.
taken from that meeting. I actually did not bring my notepad with those notes in it. So correct me, anyone, if I misspeak, but the priorities, as I recall from the Aaron Cutler Library, were, carpeting, right? Very, very old, very aged, security, and not being able to see individuals as they enter the back of the building from the main desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having that line of sight, as well as, there were some other like drainage concerns and stuff, but nothing that we would expect to see in this year's budget.
Okay.
I think the bigger areas that the library needs to start considering, and I think they were going to evaluate with the trustees, is things like HVAC replacement because of the age of some of that equipment. It's really quite old. And in terms of town budget priorities, I think it's really, we may see something related to the two I just mentioned.
Okay. Interesting. Anybody else who was on the tour have any interesting
And
feedback?
I thank Vicky and the others for absolutely taking us through
Yes.
the library.
Yeah, they also talked about possibly irrigation out in the courtyard,
Okay.
something for the future.
Rains like this, I'm not sure we need it.
I thought the lawn looked very good.
Yeah.
Well, but the rationale was, if I may, is due to some of the events that they have during the summer months and being space being a restriction.
Okay.
Right, in that building, a lot of those events that they have are outside, and to make it kind of a nicer area.
That's It's good feedback. All right. So Jen, they sent out a link to the budget, and so here's the hard copy. All right. The cable studio, we can start with the cable studio, because you hit these both in the
We did
similar
not cover
facility.
the old fire station.
You did not cover the old fire station. Oh, no, that's coming up, I believe. All right, so the cable studio, I saw some comments on that. Your general takeaway for those who didn't read them?
Yeah, again, I'm trying to recollect my notes from memory here, but they have a pretty impressive setup there. I've never been in that building, and due to the size of it, I was impressed with all that's in it. And the 2 levels, and the green wall there was pretty cool. I may have or may not have sitting in the hot seat. I don't know. I did. Okay, I don't remember. I was wearing a green shirt, so I blended in.
Floating head.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice, invisibility cloak.
Totally. It's that bobblehead thing, right? There weren't any significant, if I recall, significant priorities for the cable studio itself. Of course, that's pretty much a self-funded entity through the franchise fees that are coming through on the cable bills. Of course, there's the continuing discussion about how less enrollment in cable, is generating less income to the town, and how that may at some point need to be supplemented. But at this point, it's a self-funded entity.
And then,
Am I correct? Anybody else? Am I correct on all that?
Yeah, and they're looking for more storage. They don't have
Thank
room
you.
for storage, yeah.
That's correct. And more storage. Yes.
we have a general consensus that we're doing good observations.
All right. Thanks.
It's always nice to have them there. So thank you for sharing that space and allowing us to see what's in there. Talent Hall, did we get there yet?
Yeah, we did tour Talent Hall as well. Evidently, the pickleball league in town has donated some grant money to resurface the flooring. Correct me if I'm mistaken on
I
that.
think that's what they said, yeah.
That's what they said. So, but there's a concern, raised by Mr. Lynch and others about the age of the floor and the infrastructure and kind of the support beams under there, if it can actually withstand, a resurface, because it's actually
So they
dire
go
need of-
over top as opposed to.
Well, there's
over?
options, but it's in need of replacement,
Right.
really not a resurface, right? So that's being floated. In addition to that, exterior, interior painting was discussed, minor maintenance things. The bigger thing at Talent Hall, which is already being funded through one of the funds that we have in town, the emergency funds, is the replacement of the HVAC. Right. And there was an ask to also consider, heating as well as cooling for that building for the summer months, because actually it is a well utilized space through various leagues and organizations in town. So, I mean, Troy our town administrator is managing that. I don't know what's been selected. I did see trucks out there working as recently as last week, I believe. So I don't know what the status is there, but.
Interesting. All right. And Town Hall.
Town Hall, we did not tour.
All right. Police station, though, you did tour.
The police station, we did tour. In
It's
my,
eye-opening.
well, I mean, look, selfishly, it's always cool to tour the police station, right? And the fire station too, and seeing all the trucks. And I'm a guy, that's cool stuff, right? But anyway, the police is under, the big problem there is size, spacing constraints. The number of officers as the past few years has grown, right? But the spacing hasn't. And so there's a general concern about storage. We have uniforms being hung in the women's shower stalls because of space constraints. Obviously, with the opioids and some of the challenges that we're faced with in between, a couple of big cities, where they're doing some of their counting and screening of what they take is on their lunch break table, right? And so there's a health concern there as well. Also the Sally Port, where they pull in their vehicles.
Yes.
We have, these newer and they're great Tahoe vehicles, but they don't fit.
I think they even had a problem with the smaller vehicles.
They did, but they could actually fit. You
Right.
just couldn't really open the doors, but that,
Right. So like you couldn't wrestle somebody who's in cuffs out of even a smaller car. So to
Right.
me, there's space constraints. I would not want to be the officer. I don't think I physically could be the officer wrestling, a 300-pound guy who doesn't want to go into the holding cell
Yeah.
down that corridor.
Right.
So it's, to me, there are things that need to be, when I first toured through there, I was like, I was stunned.
Yeah, it's, and just to put it in perspective, and for those who are not following, the posts on Facebook, that's fine. It's about a 3,000 square foot space
Mhm.
for, 20 plus officers that are in and out on a regular basis. There's two primary offices, one for the chief and one for the sergeant,
Mhm.
right? Or the captain, excuse me. And then everyone else has pretty much shared working spaces. So, space, right? That's the main concern.
Mhm.
There were some safety concerns too.
That's what I'm going to, like bulletproof glass, and so some of these windows here that are facing town hall, they always thought were bulletproof, but are actually not. So there are some safety concerns that I think should be prioritized in this particular budget.
And also soundproofing for interrogation purposes
Yep.
is, sorely lacking.
I mean, look, the end of the day, in my professional opinion, and this rolls into the greater conversation with the school, right? There really needs to be a call to action. I personally would like to see a capital-wide, town-wide,
Mhm.
Infrastructure plan. I'd like to see it go to the voters for March to get the idea going, and then actually a plan. Maybe it's an ABC type option, the following year. So we'd actually vote on what we want to do in terms of spacing constraints for the police station. We have, all sorts of constraints and concerns with some of our school properties. Let's figure out a plan together from a community perspective that makes sense. Maybe that includes a refi of the fire station into a new barn. I don't know what that looks like, but I think from a school perspective, from a town perspective, it's definitely time call to action. We need to start thinking about how we're going to fix some of this stuff.
So from my perspective, and I unfortunately didn't get to join this tour, but I have toured the facility. And to me, I agree. I think a lot of it, there's obviously going to be the push by certain stakeholders for certain solutions. In my opinion, a lot of it hinges on getting this police station addressed, because I think we can reallocate the use of certain town facilities to address school and town needs. But to me, so that's part of the whole capital planning, right? If we move them into a new station, how do we use this space? Can we share with the school? And to me, I'd like to see that instead of, I've been on at least two capital planning committees. We've not gone anywhere because, in my opinion, the answer that has come forward from that committee is not the answer that the majority of people want, or some of the people want to hear. And since the push has never been for a new school, we've never made progress. And unfortunately, I think that we need to just accept that we need to do something. We can continue to wait for people like me to come around to say we need a new elementary school, but that could be 15 years from now, and we're still dealing with other issues. We have to be open-minded to other solutions. So that's where I would love to see, well, we should put this on here. Where does the capital planning committee stand, and how are we meeting? Are we doing stuff? Because I think it does tie into the March warrant.
Can I,
Sure, absolutely.
happy to speak to that. And I will mention it in Rob's report that I'm going to read out loud to you. But I agree. I think I've been advocating since I ran for the school board to work together with this needs to be a community push to address all of our infrastructure. And I completely agree with that. So in that spirit, I don't know if Mike has reached out, but we would like to invite the budget committee to come and tour the schools and see what we're dealing with, so that you can, so that you have the full picture in front of you. So I didn't know if there were some dates, if you wanted to give me. Some
So
dates
I
for
actually
you.
emailed Dr. Jetty 23 weeks ago in the hopes of getting that set. And I asked him for dates and times that would work for him. And then I listened to your school board meeting. I'm like, oh, well, we've already asked for that. So I don't know where that stands. I have requested the tours.
I think where he's one person,
Right.
and you are 9.
Right.
I think if you can give us some dates that the most of you, the majority
So
of you will
I
be
think
able to come. I think
One
that's
thing
a
we
better
need to
way go about
consider
it.
there is, I guess, hours. Would they prefer, could we meet during the day when the staff is around, or can they stay late when the committees are more available? So I think we need to.
Why do you need staff there?
Well, I think Dr. Jetty generally works.
I think
facilities
The
people.
superintendent.
Oh, yeah,
Superintendent.
he's proven time and time again, he does not mind staying
Okay.
late. So he typically works a later schedule anyway because he arrives later in the morning. So
Okay.
I think he can make any date work for
Okay.
whatever works for the majority of the budget committee.
So I think we should consider that because I think it'd be very enlightening. It's been years since the budget committee actually toured. And I think the last time we toured, it was Campbell High School because there were concerns about the science labs not being fully outfitted. And it was like one of my first years here. So I would pretty much guarantee you, the majority of people here haven't had those tours.
Yeah.
So I think it would be very, very good opportunity.
So I really want to be clear, right? So a direct call to action from the board, if I may, right? You guys do what you want with it, as well as to the school board, right? I personally like to see a warrant article going to the voters this March, right? Regarding putting together their appetite, right? It could be an advisory article, their appetite to put together a plan that will be presented to them in March of 2021 with a capital infrastructure improvement plan that would include a police station, that would include consideration for schools, reallocation of spaces, right? So if we build a station, a new police station, what does that mean for this space, right? Does that address the town hall? You know, all those things need to be considered.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
my
think
goal
it's a great
anyway.
idea.
I know that the superintendent and the chair of the school board are meeting tomorrow with Troy and with the chair of the Board of Selectmen. So that conversation has been scheduled. Are you meeting with them too?
Mhm.
So it's
Great.
ongoing. So, I mean, I think we all want to move forward and solve these problems that we have.
You know,
we've been talking about them for years.
For
but
years,
It's
and
time
it's
to
just
do
like-
something.
look, the dynamics of this town are changing. Whether we're for that or against that is entirely our own opinion. But the fact of the matter is, right, we have new developments going in continuously, right? We have a larger development off of Page going in,
Right.
right? And other developments, other community members. We have new families coming in, you know, purchasing other houses, right? The town is growing, right?
Right.
Our fact, period.
Right.
Hard stop, right? Our services have not kept up. They haven't. And we need to address it.
Well, I think, and I think we have been, but I agree, we need a long-term plan. I
Yes.
think we've been trying to address it piecemeal. We have the new fire station now, that was a need. And
You know, but I'm even thinking, you know, in terms of this plan, if the boards can agree, right, that in March, that's the idea. I think there's information and items in this budget that should wait, right? Because I don't think we should spend the money now if this is the plan in a year from now.
Well, not to mention you just economy of scale, right? Why hit a little HVAC program if you're going to do the entire building? It's just, I mean, you could do a project and then have to reconfigure it. It's just like absolutely long-term plans.
we're on
I
it.
think it's a very valid point.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to Steve and Troy.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm sure they're watching.
I mean, I would very much appreciate the opportunity to tour the schools. I think I said it last time. When you don't have your own kids, you can't exactly just show up. So I know that I very much would like to see, and it would help immensely in the budget process. I mean, and if it's going to go back and forth of who's going to throw out dates, I mean, I think we need to see if there's a consensus among us. If
There's certain
We're
days
thinking-
days of the week that people are more available than others. I mean, obviously Thursday's kind of tight, but I don't know if you.
Can we
Tuesdays.
do it all in one night? That's-
I don't know. I have 2 soccer practices in 2 towns before this
I don't
meeting.
know if all 3 schools is possible.
No, we would break it up. We do. I think like the town, like we'd hit GMS one night,
Okay,
LMS.
Yeah.
So it may not make sense to do it immediately before a budget meeting because it could. We don't know how long it's going to
oh,
take.
right.
So, you know,
Yeah. Maybe
As you
have
guys
the
can all
principals
test to
there
ask a lot of
because they know
questions,
the
so let's
buildings
be
better
quiet.
than anybody, so.
Yeah, please ask questions.
I like Mondays and Tuesdays personally, but I don't know if anybody else has any other dates that are.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, just, you know, I would recommend just getting the dates on the calendar and
Well, so let's. Is there a day of the week that people are more comfortable with? Otherwise, I'll throw it works for me, and you guys can say yeah or nay. Like,
at this point, we just need to schedule.
Well, Mondays, we tend to have selectment meetings.
like every other week, though.
Every
So,
other week, yeah.
so we can pick an off
Monday.
week. We do
I'm
it.
good with Monday.
Yeah.
Do it
Well,
on-
we've hit a couple in a
Mondays,
row
Tuesdays. I'm
because
sorry.
I work late on Mondays.
All right, so you're late on Mondays. I'm sorry.
Either Monday, Tuesday.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
I mean, I have a kid in each school, so I'm pretty familiar with the
Right.
conditions of all 3 schools. So
Right.
don't worry about my schedule.
Okay.
It's very variable.
So Tuesdays work better for some people on the center. How about Tuesdays over here?
With a couple weeks notice, I can move some people around.
Okay, so I will pull
I
together some.
generally work, but I can try to move people.
Okay. How late do you work on Mondays? Like way late? Like can't you meet after that or
It varies.
like 6:00?
No, I definitely couldn't do 6.
All right. All right. So we'll shoot for Tuesdays, a couple weeks out, because we don't start the budget review for you guys until like November.
Right.
So that would be able to give us enough time to get you a couple
Yeah,
weeks
if you can
notice.
give me
and
some
stuff.
dates, I can block them out on my calendar so I don't
Tuesdays.
schedule anybody.
All right. We'll do that. All right. So we'll move forward with getting Tuesdays for the walkthroughs through the school. And I do think it would look like 3 different walkthroughs because I think you want to focus on each building. And then we'll be in contact with our lovely cable TV people to see if there are any objections for the school. I would ask the school first if they're comfortable with us videoing it and then try to arrange it. Okay. Excellent.
That's a good idea, Amy. Document
Awesome.
what you see. Yeah,
Because like you said, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't comfortable walking through it because their kids are
Right.
grown and gone,
right.
but they still need to
It'll
understand
be
it's
interesting to see. Yeah.
still their assets. So excellent. All right. So we talked some of that. So back to the police station. Did we cover everything we've observed at the police station?
I think so.
All right. So this is the new fire station.
The new fire station, we also did a walkthrough. For those who have not yet seen it, there's an open house coming up next week, October 5th, Saturday, October 5th. In addition to that, public service announcement, October 4th is the fire truck parade. Always a fun time. You'll see, I'm told, our new forestry unit on
Yeah.
display there, which is beyond massive.
It's
Huge.
super awesome.
It's pretty cool. But the fire station itself, there's no immediate needs there. Obviously, it's brand new. They're still kind of, getting settled into the new station itself.
So realistically, for the new fire station, it's a matter now of establishing history for like utilities and other stuff. Because
Yep.
we just threw numbers at the wall last year and how hopefully we'll be able to establish what it actually costs to heat and do the electric and other stuff. So-
Yes, I think, and I don't know what exactly has been presented to the board. I know when the chief was here and the deputy was here presenting their budgets, they did not cover this. However, it was mentioned on record during our walkthrough that engine 2 is
Oh, yes.
30 plus years old. And the parts are no longer to be found. And we may expect to see a warrant article for a new fire apparatus
Mhm.
this year. And just to kind of set the foundation, I don't have the actual costs, but the chief mentioned to me very preliminary numbers, somewhere in the ballpark of $650,000.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
My dad grew up I grew up with in the fire department. We had volunteer fire departments and I would not be surprised.
So
They actually had a fundraiser for all their trucks. God bless them.
Hmm.
So,
we can debate, whether the timing is right, all of that, right? But I'm just being forthcoming
Realistically, though,
about what was mentioned.
it was one of the things that was discussed when we were talking about the fire station.
Right.
I mean, I know I tried to hammer that home. Like, how are we going to plan for the replacement of these vehicles? We know the aging of them. We know, and to me, that's part of the long-term capital plan because we know we have to replace these. And you don't want to try to do that at the same time you put a school warrant up. Like, there has to be some strategic planning, but we also have to be aware of what's coming up because this town's going to have expensive stuff and the school's going to have expensive stuff. The roof at LMS might need to be replaced at some point. So let's, try to space it out in a way that's responsible, but can actually kind of level fund. You don't want massive spikes. So we want to make sure that we're between the town and the school, we can come to some kind of plan, in my opinion, anyway. So that would be my goal. All right. Is there anything else in the town that we have not covered and should have?
We also toured the old town hall. That was
Yes.
on the list that we
Thank
did
you.
on it. It's not on here.
I mean, that was the town hall I was supposed to return.
It was the cable studio in the old town hall.
Well, we were originally going to do this town hall, but Troy said there's nothing to see there, so we went.
Oh, really?
So we moved on, but we did see the
Okay.
old town hall. It's okay.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the reminder. The primary concerns for the old town hall are again exterior painting. Obviously, we've all heard in years past about the basement in that building, very mold and mildewy, and you could smell that immediately when you walk into that building. The history, and Dr. Calloway did a great job of walking us through, what's in that building. Also a building I've never been in, so I appreciate the tour.
Mhm.
But I'd say the number one primary need of that is the painting in the exterior. And I think it's, you're Mr. Lear's the painter here, but I mean, likely some clapboard replacement would be required and some scraping, and it's more than just a top coat.
Right, and then if you start doing the clapboards and hoping that the sheathing doesn't need to be replaced, well, so that
In
could
that,
be a fun project.
in that discussion, I believe the last time it was painted, we had the community service program from the prison. That program is actually no longer being funded.
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah, the last time it was contracted out, we couldn't get the prison.
Yeah, that's-
to do it.
thank you.
And that service is rendering which way, I don't know which way it's gonna go now, but for the last 3 years, it's been really low.
And for those that are watching, this is Mr. Lynch in
Oh,
the
yeah.
audience responding to us.
I love those guys. I call them a Valley Street LLC.
So anyway, that would need to be addressed.
Okay.
And I might be mistaken in this, but I feel like I remember in the police station tour, they were saying with some of their storage constraints that they actually were thinking, the old town hall has been used for storage in the past, but the way that its conditions right now really don't make it.
Exactly. And,
Hopefully
storage is a common theme from what we've seen,
Everywhere,
right?
yeah.
And, every group we talk to, well, we can use the old fire station. We can use the old fire
We need
station.
a plan.
So
for
we
Everybody
need a
everybody.
plan,
wants the old
right? I mean, so
fire station.
there's a lot of people that want, I heard the cable committee, we can use the fire station, so there's got to be a plan together. Yeah.
We don't.
Boy
we
Scouts
don't-
the
we
other
don't need to
night.
use the station.
Yeah,
We have
the-
storage issues.
Store their stuff.
You're good?
I saw
Tents and
No,
tents,
we're
yeah.
not good.
Okay.
Hey,
But we're not gonna
I'm in the
use
Cub
Alright.
Scouts group. I totally am like, that would be a nice space. We divvied it up and did like little cells. 'Cause a place I
I
worked
think it would be great.
in Boston, that's what they did. They took a section of like their basement and they chain linked
Everyone got a
it.
space.
And you got a cell with a padlock, and this is yours, and this is yours, and this is yours. But we need a plan from, it's really, I can give you all kinds of great ideas, ones you solicit and the ones you don't want. Everybody knows I've got an opinion and an idea. But it really has to come from, the Board of Selectmen as to what they propose.
And I think we have that for a future agenda to discuss. What
Excellent.
we want to start doing with it.
Hopefully before March and as part of the Camp Out plan.
Sorry,
Having a sidebar.
we're having a sidebar about the old town hall.
Well, we're talking about the old town hall, so please bring in the rest of us.
So right next to the old town hall, I'm informed, right? There's now a residential house that was formerly the town tavern, and how great it would be to resurrect the town tavern.
We were just saying that the old firehouse might be fun if it was like a smokehouse barbecue.
Yeah, but the whole reason we built a new fire station is because we didn't want to put any more money into
Yeah,
the
I
old
know.
fire station.
Yeah, I
Good
don't
luck
know
trying
that-
to get that up to
Pretty good.
code.
I know.
I love the idea and thinking outside the box, but I think we run into practical and logistical concerns with that idea.
Well, that's not for me. That's the restaurant developer's job.
That's why I'm not an architect, because I'm more of the engineer. So, all right. So anything else on the town that we need to consider or that are coming up or that I should be aware of or we should be aware of? Or we did good?
I think that's it. I think
All
we'll be
right.
here next week presenting budget. Troy will be here and answering any questions that you might have.
Before going through the budgets, I mean, we did receive them hard copy and soft copy a short time ago. Is there anything that from a committee we should be prepared to see in this budget without having gone through it yet?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So-
Everyone's been pretty good about keeping the numbers tight.
The
That's been
only
the common
thing
theme.
that Troy mentioned to me is that it does not include, typically there's a projection of 10% for health insurance and other increases. Because it's such a wide band, he said that he did not include that and will address it at a later date. So whatever increase we see in there, we have to consider is in addition to healthcare increases and other benefit increases. The number that we see does not factor those in yet.
Right.
So that's something to be, just to consider. He's like, I could throw a number at it, but
Mhm.
it's just as accurate as not throwing a number at it. So unless you want to say shoot high and look like a hero if you come in low.
When do you get the rates? When is the rate set?
They're not set yet, and he's not sure when they're gonna be set.
I feel like we usually get them like November, December, like before we final, there were times like it was like
Yeah.
right before we finalized, we were like revamping numbers. It's not until after we've done reviewing their budget. Yeah, so.
That's tough.
And I did ask him that today, and he's not sure at this point.
So that is one thing to consider. There is so whatever budget increase you see, no matter how you feel about it, there's still an additional increase to come.
Right.
Could be.
So,
He says they're variable.
right. I mean, that said, I heard rumors that there's going to be additional potential for additional revenue, but we'll see how that works out. So that brings us to the school. General update.
General update, hold on, please. The GMS playground is open,
Mhm.
and because we had it professionally installed, we were able to open it before the official inspection from Primex. I guess that was the misunderstanding. They thought it was installed by volunteers, and they said, no, we have to inspect it. And then we said, no, we paid extra for professional installations so that we didn't have to do that.
Right.
So
The
it,
kids were thrilled. Let me tell my kids were thrilled.
Good. And I know Andrew worked hard on that committee,
Yes.
getting those pieces installed. So that was a huge get for GMS. All of our new buses have been delivered. We were waiting on 2 that apparently had a small collision leaving the yard in North Carolina, but they're all repaired and are here. And they all are equipped with external cameras on the back. I don't know if Rob filled you in on that, but they all have a camera that's aiming at the stop sign that comes out when the bus stops and the lights are flashing, the doors open. So it will catch. And they Sean from First Student sent a video of a photo of what the camera sees, and it if you're going the opposite direction, it will read your license plate.
So my question on that is, have we coordinated with the police department for enforceability of tickets?
Underway. Yes. Yeah. The police department is aware that we have ordered these, and they are excited to help to partner with us on
Just based on the number of the,
enforcement.
hey, stop running stop signs we saw the first week, I'm thinking we could fund these
Right.
pretty quickly.
Also,
Unfortunately, but
I know it was scary though. And the new buses also, it's the old school buses, as they stop, they kind of have a lazy little blink, blink, blink. These are like hyper. If you miss these,
you're blind.
there's something wrong with you. You should not be driving a car. So, all in the name of enhanced safety for our kids. So that's exciting. Food services, I know Rob I don't know if Rob reported it or not, frankly, but we discussed as a school board. Food services for 2018-19 had a shortfall of approximately $40,000. I think he presented that to this board. Most of that was due to replacing equipment and unpaid accounts. We had.
So what's this breakdown on that? Do you know, like how?
Last I remember us discussing was that unpaid accounts was about $6,000 to $8,000. And then we also had we had an employee go from part-time to full-time as we needed more staff for the kitchen. So benefits for that employee added up into that. I'm not sure what the breakdown was for the new equipment, but I know Lauren was waiting on new equipment to be delivered this week for GMS. She's reorganizing that entire kitchen so that it works for more food prep and instead of just food reheating.
Right.
So it's all in the name of, nutritional quality meals for our kids, which I think is a big improvement. Revenues and lunch counts were way up this year. She was, I don't know if you received the chart, but as a board member, every month was at least 200 meals more than last year, the same month. So we're selling more meals and revenues are up, but because of the expenditure and investing in the program, she was operating at a deficit. We expect it to be self-funded next year.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. If you do a capital investment, that it would.
Yeah.
It's not a regular expenditure that.
Right. So to financial update, DOE 25 extension was granted because eFinance, we switched the version of eFinance that the SAU was using, and it was an upgrade from like 10.1 to 10.2, and everything broke. So the final draft of the DOE 25 will be available by the next meeting. And then some laws were changed in how Medicaid is funded and budgeted and billed. So Rob noted that we budget for $100,000 received from Medicaid. Last year we received $130,000, but there are changes in the works due to the changes in the law of how we bill it. So it might have to be that we pay the bills up front and then Medicaid reimburses us, which is going to change kind of how we budget for that.
Well, cash flow and whatnot, right?
Yeah. So the New Hampshire School Board Association has appealed on behalf of the school boards in New Hampshire because it's an undue financial burden.
Right.
At the the onset when those bills are due. So
And then you're just hoping that they pay. You don't say tough luck.
So that's kind of up in the air. Enrollment numbers are still within the guidelines. So we haven't needed to add any classes. We're still watching kindergarten closely because they are I believe they're at 19 per class and 20 in one class, with a student starting in October. So that will bump one of the classes up to 20. We're really hoping that's it. As a para for 22 kindergartners, I can attest that it's a lot of kindergarten.
Well, my concern on that is adding another classroom, which, if we need it, we need it, but the impact it has to the rest of the school.
Yeah.
Because
It will-
somebody's getting kicked out of some classroom and that sucks.
Yeah. Well, and the other, I don't know what's the chance of that happening? The other way to look at it too is if we get 2 more students or 3 more students, say, to make another class, we need to pull kids, and that's not ideal for anyone
Right.
to have to change
No.
their kindergarten teacher, at any point in the year. So we're watching it closely. We're keeping an eye on things, but we expect it to kind of max out at 20.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And since we budgeted for 5, my understanding is that what we're not spending, we're kind of like setting to the side? Or is that going to the general fund and being?
Well, it's all in the general fund.
Right, but
It's there if we need it.
Right.
And if not, it'll be returned
Right.
at the end of the year. And then the special election update, we're still on track to have a deliberative session on Tuesday, which is really fast to me. And election on
I feel like we've been talking about it for 6
10/29.
months.
So where we are in that process is George Lambert, who made a motion to intervene as a taxpayer, a resident of Litchfield. He has since the court order came down, he appealed. He made an appeal to the judge to stop the election, and the judge denied his request. So we're continuing with the preparations, but we expect that he's going to appeal to the state Supreme Court. And our legal counsel has said, if that happens, we would stop if there was an injunction on the school board to stop the election process. Other than that, we're still proceeding as if, barring any decision coming from the court. We're not expecting a decision from the Supreme Court at this point, since, them accepting and hearing the case if they heard the case, it would still be 2 years out before we had a ruling. And then it would basically be a case law precedent that the Supreme Court overturned it. We would still proceed and have the vote and, enact the CBA based on us having the ruling from the court. So that's kind of where we are with that.
So one of the questions that I feel like we have not gotten an answer to,
Is how much it's going to cost.
yeah, we've been asking for months.
Yep. And I will hold that line. We don't know yet until all the bills come in. We haven't,
So where are we at right now?
I don't know. We have not gathered those numbers yet.
So I understand the position you guys are in, and I'm going to avoid my personal opinion on the process. But we've been asking for the cost for months. They should be able to pull a report to cost to date. $5,000, $3,000, $25,000.
So
The cost to date, at least we should be able to figure out.
I understand. The board feels that any investment in the special election is worth it to get a contract for our teachers.
I appreciate that, but it still needs to be monetized and quantified.
And it will
There's a
be.
number. Yeah, after the fact. I've been asking this number. This question's been out there for weeks, if not months.
Right. It's not.
So the perception is reality, especially in a small town. How does it look when we as a budget committee, who are responsible for overseeing and advising on these expenditures, can't get that number? How does that look perception-wise?
See, I would disagree. I think the budget committee's role is to advise and review our budget, not to tell the school board how we should spend the money in our budget.
And that's correct, but it also says if we ask, the information shall be provided. I don't see the shall happening.
Okay.
So
Does it make a difference?
perhaps not to me, but it could to somebody else. Again, perception is reality. Why doesn't the school board want that information out there? To me, perception doesn't look good.
Okay.
There's no reason not to provide it.
We'll forward that question again to Dr. Jetty, and he will respond as he sees fit
So where does this money come from anyway? Is it like
from
the
our general fund.
So the fund that you guys put in for before got approved, and then you haven't spent it, but you're spending it now on legal stuff that the town basically said no to something. You guys didn't like that answer, so now you're going back
No.
trying to get another answer, and all that money's being spent. It's town money being spent, right? It's my
So-
tax money and everybody else's tax
Right.
money being spent by the purview of the school board because they didn't like the answer they got from the town.
No, that's not true. We didn't, we did hear the town. We did hear what you said. We polled the budget committee. We asked for feedback. We got feedback. We renegotiated a contract. And the court found that there was an emergency due to the nature of relationships with there's a 10-page court order that says that we have every right to have a special election. And that is our job. Our job as school board is to run the schools and do what's best for our schools. And the best thing for our schools, we feel, and the judge supported us, was to have a special election.
Right, but those who have those concerns also have the right to know how much they're investing in. How much of an investment does the school board feel it's worth? Perhaps it'll play into their decision, perhaps it won't. But knowledge is power. And to me, we're not providing that.
Right, so if I'm a taxpayer requesting this information, how quickly can I get it?
I
In
don't
other
know.
words, let's say it's not the budget committee that's asking for the information as far as how much has been spent on legal fees.
Well, we would have to pull staff and pull those numbers. So I believe, we would do that. And I don't know how long it would take and how many staff members it would take to do that, because we're going back now from March. So we've been doing this since March.
Understood, but the question was raised at the budget hearing over
Yeah.
a month ago.
Yeah.
Still haven't seen anything.
Okay.
I think the residents have a right to know.
Okay. We also just opened a school year, so it's been a little bit busy.
I was notified by the town clerk, and I saw it a little bit on social media, that the absentee ballots are in.
Yes.
Thank
those
you.
are-
So anybody who's a registered voter can request an absentee ballot to vote.
out of state, so. I
To
was on
me,
that.
Oh, thank you.
and again, this isn't related to that, but I would suggest that you guys put signs up on Albuquerque, both ends, for those who may or may not even follow Facebook, who only get their information from the HLN. You want to make sure that, which I like the HLN. I know some people don't, but hey, to me, I would like to see more of a effort to get the information out there, because we're looking at a 3-year contract, and come March, if people feel like they were denied the opportunity to weigh in, that's going to make getting a budget passed even more challenging.
Yeah, the school board is aware of that. We have met with the LEA, and we are prepared now to do that. And like I said, we just started school a month ago, so we've been a little bit busy.
Okay.
But yeah, we get it. We're on it.
My only question, putting the dollars aside, is we have the special election on the 29th. What is the impact to the next tax cycle?
Good question.
Will it be included? Will it be separate?
So are you asking if we're going to have a supplemental tax bill?
Yes.
No, our hope is absolutely not. By having the election on the 29th, and I think Mike has talked to Terry about this, and we can schedule a meeting at 8 a.m. on the 30th with the DRA,
Yeah.
and we can prepare 2 scenarios. So one is with the teacher contract passed, and one is the budget without the tax impact. And then they can meet and hand one or the other over after the votes are in.
But it has to be on October 30th, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to be.
They have to be mailed out November 1st, I believe, right? So
Yep.
we have the 31st as well. And then Mike has offered SAU staffers to come and stuff envelopes and get that mailing out. So we do not, none of us want to have a supplemental tax bill.
Right.
So it should be calculated in yes, yay or nay at that point. So we should be ready to go.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, and concerns? I think it hits all our bullet points in the school business, unless you feel that there's other stuff.
Yeah, there was an interesting, actually, Ralph Baum posted yesterday on the Facebook page, but I just wanted to say it again officially, that the budget passed, the New Hampshire state budget passed yesterday, which means I I think the number overall was 100. No, it was like 600.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of money for schools, which means for the fiscal year 1920, our district is expecting about I think it was $435,000 in unanticipated revenue because of the state increase, and in 20 to 21, we're looking at 525,000 something. So that's unanticipated revenue in coming into our district that we weren't expecting. So and what I've heard Sununu say is that it's intended to be we're not counting on it, but it's intended to be a fix. So they've fully funded kindergarten. So kindergarten won't be funded by Keno anymore. They've done away with the reduction in the stabilization grant. So we were losing 4% every year in stabilization grants. That's restored now to the 2012 levels, which was before they started decreasing that. And there are infrastructure grants too that will be available. So we are hoping that we can take advantage of some of those to address our infrastructure needs as they come up in our long-term planning.
I think that's great news. I also would caution that we don't go on a spending spree.
I think the intent is to use that revenue for immediate needs that will not have a long-term impact on the budget. So for example, we're not going to go out and hire 20 new teachers because that if that money dries up, which it has before, then that would be on the taxpayer. So infrastructure is a really good way to use that money. So
because realistically, even as awesome as that is, the taxpayers are still the state has already reneged on their portion of the pension funds. Taxpayers are fully funding that. So even restoring all this money, taxpayers are still picking up a larger portion than they were 10 years ago. So I think it's great, but the taxpayers still aren't returned to whole. So I would still try to make sure that we're very cognizant that this is not extra money to go spend. It's actually starting to return the taxpayers to where they should be before they were the ones tapped to fill all the holes.
But at the same time, the New Hampshire School Board Association has cautioned against returning it all to the taxpayers because then we see an artificial drop in the tax impact. And then it goes up after 2 years. The goal is to be level funded and keep things stable so that we're not seeing these huge drops and spikes from year to year.
I agree with that in principle. I think, however, we have to recognize that the taxpayers are continually the ones shouldering a larger and larger portion of the budget, and this is just trying to try to return to them that which was already stolen from them. So just be aware that.
I'm also aware of the infrastructure needs of our district. So
I'm not denying that.
Just talked about.
right.
I'm not. To me, they're separate issues. Like it costs what it costs to build and to take care of it, and that's fine. If the cost is what the cost is, I don't want us to see this extra money and say, well, we can have scope creep. That's all I'm suggesting against. Just
Thank you for your advice.
thank you. Any other comments or relative to the school? All right. So that brings us to member input or new business. I'll start over here. Anybody?
So I just have one item. So Mr. Leary at the Board of Selectmen meeting after our vote, you stated publicly that I should have abstained from the teacher contract vote. And I'm just wondering if you can advise me why you think I should have abstained. Because you stated because I was the wife of the school board chair, I should have abstained.
And I probably should have been more clear on that. I just feel personally that anytime that there is a connection to a member who is voting and a particular article that's up for vote, that they should step back from that.
So then by your rationale, I should not vote on anything in relation to the school.
This was a very big ticket item. As Mr. Myers had said, it's the biggest one on the agenda for the year.
So when we're approving a $25 million budget for the school district, should I be abstaining for that because Brian's my husband?
Why is that in air quotes? Is he not your husband?
In your
Oh,
opinion, that I should be abstaining from that?
And you know what? I thought it was the thing to do. And when you mentioned in your letter, which I saw, that my wife has got a possible contract coming up. It seems like it never happens, and they never talk, but I was definitely planning on abstaining from that or having another member sit in for me, because that is a conflict. And you know what? If it was the same thing, if my sister was still teaching in the school, I probably would have stepped away from that one as well. I just think it's the proper thing to do. And you know what? You can disagree with me. It's okay. I've always said it's okay to disagree.
Sure. So
That's
I
how
guess,
people talk.
I think it's important for us as a committee to discuss, because so abstaining from a vote is when you have personal benefit. So I have no personal benefit from the teacher contract.
No, I
I
understand.
just happen to be married to the school board chair. And
And again,
so-
appearances are everything,
but
how it appears to people.
so I've been on the budget committee for 4 years now, and I have sat here and cut numerous times from the school budget
Right.
and gone home and gotten crap for it, but done it. Like I am a separate person from Brian, and it's highly offensive to think that,
I never said that you were.
but you,
I never insinuated anything of that. It's not personal. It's just I felt it was wrong.
here. Do we need to air this out here?
yeah.
It
So-
sounds like it's like
Yeah.
a thing between you two.
May I jump in?
Yes.
Right, so, Mrs. Bork's a valued member of the Budget Committee, an elected member of this Budget Committee. The people, the voters voted Mrs. Bork in twice now, right? Mrs. Bork has, years ago, right, we had this debate. I remember the debates, right? Mrs. Bork has shown nothing but objectivity to the budgets, independence, carefully thought and articulate responses, and voting as such, right? Mrs. Bork is a welcomed and appreciated member of this committee, and I fully support her votes for the school budget.
Okay, and there's no legal reason why you have to step away. I just, on my end, it's the appearance of it all, that's all. And nothing personal. It has absolutely nothing to do with personalities. And in your letter, you addressed some other points, and I don't think they were professional to do that.
I'm sorry, what letter?
I believe there was a letter sent as a resident to the Board of
I
Selectmen.
sent-
So
right.
realistically, the appropriate venue to discuss that would be at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Which it's more than welcome to do that. I have nothing personal against you or your husband.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. How about this side? Andrew?
Yes, because we're moving into closure of the meeting. On the agenda that was posted on Facebook this afternoon as well, it says our next meeting date is Thursday, October 3rd. I actually believe our next meeting date is Monday, the 30th,
Oh, yes.
because we have continued reviews of town facilities.
Yes.
Actually, we're supposed to discuss that. Now that you mentioned it. So Monday, it's scheduled for 6:30.
I'm glad I brought it up.
No, the thing is, the concern is it's scheduled for 6:30. The concern is that may not present enough time in order to tour the facilities before it gets too dark. So would the
Monday
budget
the
committee
30th
be
is
interested
our
in moving
next-
it to, say, 6:00? So, I mean, they could repost it and change the time, but would the budget committee want to meet earlier in order to provide enough time? Or do you feel 6:30 is fine? I was asked to ask. I have no personal stake in it. I can't attend it anyway.
So just
Animal shelter.
right. So we have the solid waste, we have the recycling center, we have the dog kennel, and then we've tabled the old fire station
My understanding is they want to try to
And-
squeeze that in on
and the
Monday.
town hall if we're going to review it.
Right.
Or take a look at it.
So I believe the concern was reviewing the old fire station in the dark. So by moving it a little earlier, provided a better opportunity in viewing of the facility that you're actually going to attempt to view. So,
The town facility is probably more crucial because that doesn't really have lighting.
right.
The old fire station still has lighting. It hasn't been turned off, correct?
No, the lights
Okay.
are good, and the outside lights are
Okay.
marvelous.
All right.
So we could actually.
There
do
was
that.
still, it's fine, maybe they were starting there and then moving to the other facilities, but there was a concern about darkness and how that would affect
Yeah.
the touring. So whether the committee wanted to meet earlier in order to.
So it's scheduled for 6:30, right?
Right, so do we want to move it to 6?
I don't, does 6 or 6:30 make a material difference? to
Doesn't
this
affect
committee?
my ability to.
Doesn't make any difference. I'll be there. so.
Right, so 6 o'clock would.
All right, so so you're right. The next meeting will actually be Monday at 6:00.
Yes.
And where are we starting?
I will find out for you.
I
because
would
I'm-
recommend or ask that we start at the old fire station
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just work up.
That would.
Monday at 6.
It's just a tour thing though, right? It's not, has nothing to do with voting or anything.
Right.
Right.
No.
But if
So the
there's
main
a,
thing
there's
is-
a quorum, there's a meeting.
Right.
Right.
Right, I can't be there, so I just want to make sure it's not a voting thing.
No, it's a matter of so that when the budget comes forward and they say, hey, I want to replace the heating system at the kennels, you'll be like, oh, I actually saw that. I know what they're talking about. I won't because I'm probably not going to be able to go. But this way it allows you to put a picture.
I just want to make
with-
sure there's no.
No.
When you
But-
say meeting, if it's just like a tour thing, fine.
It's
If
just-
a meeting.
It's a legality. We cannot, if we have more than a quorum or greater, it's an official meeting and public has to be notified so that we don't run up against or have any like perception of impropriety. We're not wheeling and dealing off in the side in an illegal meeting. So error on the side of being overly transparent.
I think the last walkthrough, we didn't have a quorum on either board, but then Mr. Lynch showed up and gave us a quorum on the selectmen side.
Right. So
Correct. And then also on the school, we had
Oh, yeah, because
Mr.
Rob
McDonald
showed up.
show, right, and Rob show up, and then we had a quorum on the budget committee as well, and then we never called it formally to order because the meeting, our review had already started.
Right.
So
but
Anyway.
by putting out the notice, it covers us in case enough people show up.
in both the board and myself, we didn't recognize that. So,
I think Cindy
Yeah,
Couture
yes.
had pointed it out on.
yes, thank you, Cindy.
Very Well, there was a lot to look at, and I think
Yes.
I know that it's a lot, and not everyone can make it in person. But I would suggest that if people are able to see, we had Litchfield Television come and show. I mean, to me, there was a huge difference between hearing about
Mhm.
the conditions of the police station and seeing it for myself. It was a huge difference.
Mhm.
And I think it makes a difference. So I know not everyone can make it in person. We've got a lot of stuff, but if you're able to see the video, I think that will help us all just be informed about what we're voting about.
Not to mention, I don't think everybody could fit in the old police station, so. All right, so Andrew, anything else?
No, that covers it. Thank you.
Christina?
No. Okay.
All right, so that ends that. Any public input?
Hell no.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Second. Motion and seconded by Jen. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, that was an aye.
All right, and an abstention. So again, as we pointed out, the next meeting will actually be on Monday, but our budget review will begin next Thursday. All right, so I encourage you to take a look at it.
your numbers.
Take a look at it, bring questions, and be prepared to listen. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week.